I'm Nigel, and I've got no idea what I'm doing. Today, we're going on a road trip. I wanted to talk a little bit about all the modifications we've done to this car, specifically the performance and handling modifications, and that means the bracing that we've done. The frame rails front to rear, the side fender rails, the bracing underneath the gearbox and the bracing in the rear subframe. Oh, and there's the Bilstein sport suspension from the NB that we put in as well, which also had an effect on the handling. So, the big question. Was it all worth it? Well, that's a little bit complicated. We're going to need to break it down a little bit. Without question, this car feels and handles better. I mean, it feels fantastic. I think the work that's been done has absolutely made a difference. The frame rails, I think, made the biggest difference. They've really brought the front and the back of the car together. Feels much more cohesive. Feels like a far superior handling vehicle. The brake booster's been an excellent upgrade as well. The braking feel is a lot more immediate. The front bracing, that's a bit harder to say. I don't know if I can feel a difference, and I think that probably says more about me than the bracing itself. I think the other thing that we need to remember is that this is still on the old tyres that were on it when we dragged it out of that shed. They're probably not great. I mean, they're okay, they're fun, but I think a new pair of tyres would make a massive difference in handling. Was it expensive? It kind of was. I suppose the thing we need to keep in mind though is that expensive for a MX5 or a Miata garage working on the weekends car. Probably not expensive for a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or something crazy. So it's a bit relative. I mean, I think all up I've probably spent maybe a couple of $1,000 on the bracing, on the suspension. A little bit more to go if I buy some new tyres. So, I mean, yeah, compared to the cost of the vehicle, that's kind of expensive. Oh, somebody's having fun. Well, that's a complicated question. I think if you're doing motorsports, track days, hill climbs, motorcanas, gymkhanas, whatever, then yeah, I think these modifications are going to make a big difference. They're going to mean less time getting around the track, and that's what it's all about. So from a motorsport perspective, absolutely, these things are totally worth it. But here's the thing, for me, I don't really do that kind of stuff. I'm a Sunday driver, it's Sunday now. So I'm not so sure they are. This car, and we talked about this before, this car handles fantastically stock. It's about fun, it's about enjoying the drive. Speaking of which. So the best thing about this car is the fact that it makes you happy. I'm sure there's other cars that make you happy. I don't know if there's any that are gonna make you this happy for this kind of price. I just had that moment of knowing not where I was. Driving along being completely lost. I think that's one of the downsides of doing pieces to camera. You forget to navigate. That grin factor comes down to a number of things. It comes down to the wind in what little hair you've got left. It comes down to being low to the ground. It makes everything feel faster. The noise of the exhaust that you can hear right behind you. All of these little things all kind of tell you that you're doing something exciting, that you're doing something fun. Added on to that is the incredibly tight steering that we've got, partially because of these mods. It all is just very, very good fun, and I do love driving it just anywhere. I don't love having to get some fuel, which is what we're going to do now. So spending a few $1,000s, and more if you've got to pay somebody to fit the parts, I'm not entirely sure it's worth it. This car's a blast without this stuff. Now sure, it's even more of a blast with it, but is 5%, 10%, 15% more giggles, more smiles worth a few $1,000s? I don't know. Now, having said all of that, I think there's one aspect that we really haven't taken into account yet. For me, and I suspect for a lot of you guys, part of the enjoyment that we get is being able to spend time working on the car in the garage. And I think that's the third and probably the most important part of this. As you guys have seen, I've spent a lot of time on this car with a lot of good friends, with my dad and with my boys. And really, I think that's what's worth the most out of the things that I've put on this car. The time that I've got to spend with those people, family and friends, the most important people I know. So let's not forget when we're trying to decide if a job like this is worth it, and it doesn't have to be bolting on performance parts, it could just be cleaning it. It could be just enjoying the car. The time that you're spending with the people that are important to you, that's what makes it worth it most. So yeah, it's absolutely worth it. Now, you're probably wondering why it's been so long since the last video. Well, there's two reasons for that. Number one, the place where we're getting the painting done kind of still hasn't been built yet. It's underway, and hopefully we'll get to that soon. The second one is a bit more serious. A few months ago, a blood vessel in the back of my head decided to let go. It wasn't a good day. Spent a couple of weeks in hospital, and then there was at least a month, maybe more, of recovery. But we're all good now, up and kicking. Bit of medical advice. If you suddenly get the world's worst headache, yeah, maybe don't muck around with that and get yourself looked into. All right, see you next time.
Up and kicking?
Up and kicking, I don't know. We're all good. So,